if you stay, then you need to do the job, and the job is caregiving. It is not being a wife, it is being a caregiver. And that kind of clarity for me was really important, because I need to know what my job is. However, even when you know your job is, and then he's acting like his old self again, it is so tempting to pretend like, oh, it is back. He can be my husband again, right? So at the same time, you're interacting kind of like you used to when you were husband and wife. You have to remember that you aren't the wife. You're just the caregiver acting like the wife at that point in time. That sounds so convoluted, but it is the difference between doing your job, and I'm going to say being your job.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast. My name is Melissa, and this is Sammy. We are diving deep into conversations that connect and inspire. Stories of resilience, triumph, and transformation. Stories that take us to the heart of human connection. Please note that opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of this podcast. Please listen with your kindness and an open mind. Each story shared is authentic and vulnerable. Let's embrace our differences with empathy, knowing every voice enriches us. Together, let's cultivate a community of respect and curiosity. Thank you for listening. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired.
Welcome to the Happy Soul Podcast, everybody. Today it is Melissa and I, and we are here with Faye Martin. Faye Martin wrote a book called Dementia Widow, and it is a beautiful book where she speaks about her experience with her husband being diagnosed with dementia and her journey as going from a wife and partner to a caregiver. She talks very much in depth, not just today in the conversation, but in her book, about how she I don't want to use the word battles, but she has to make a very conscious decision of, I am a wife and a partner, and I see where this is going. And if I stay, I am giving up wife and partner and becoming a caregiver, or I can leave as a wife and partner and put him somewhere else. And she speaks about so much of that journey for her and the differences and how that impacts her. And it's a really beautiful conversation. And her hope is to help those who are also working in that, living in that situation of being a caregiver that was a spouse. Because as she was going through this journey, she found that there wasn't a lot of resources to help that. And so we're really excited to dive into this conversation with Faye.
And also, I just want to say, just as we're talking about her book, she also has a blog, and she's very active on it. And so you can head to her website, which is fayemartin.ca. And there's more resources there if you find yourself in the position of being a caregiver or even caregiver of caregivers. There's a lot of resources there, and she's got some beautiful writing that you can check out. And she's coming to Calgary on April 17th. So watch for that too.
Welcome to the podcast, Faye. The first thing we would really love to ask you is just to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what brings you to the podcast today, and what your hope is out of recording a podcast episode.
Okay. What brings me to the podcast is that I went to a deaf cafe in Haliburton Village that was facilitated by Amanda Lytle. Is it Amanda? Yes,
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
Right. And she put me in touch with you guys. So I don't even really know all that much about the connection between the two of you, except that there is one. She did a really good job of facilitating that deaf cafe. It was the first one I'd been to. It was really interesting. So that's what put us in contact. What I hope to get out of this, well, I wrote this book to be useful to people. And so anything that can get anything from the book out there in the ears of people that might find it useful is nothing but good, right? So I'm excited to see where you guys will take this conversation.
Yeah, because I remember I love Amanda. So just a brief background. Amanda and I met in Australia, like 14, 15 years ago. And she was my bunkmate in a hostel in like the outback of Australia.
Yes.
And she was like, we talked till all hours of the morning till someone said, go to bed. And she invited me to walk around Ayers Rock with her the next morning. And I had just spent literally 17 hours that day walking around Ayers Rock. I had blisters on my feet. And I had such a good time chatting with her that night that I joined her again to walk it again the next morning with all these blisters. And that was how we met. And we've just stayed in touch ever since. That was we
Yeah.
parted ways the next day, and that was it. But
Her grandparents live just down the road from me, right?
oh,
So
Are you
okay.
kidding?
I didn't know them, but I certainly know their house, right?
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
That's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Actually, when we were at Nares Rock, her grandparents called her while we were there, and I did a video call with her and her grandparents, and her sister was there with her brand new baby twins at the time.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, that's
That's
a
so
side
cool.
note.
That's so
But
Life is
cool.
wonderful.
that was
Yeah.
one thing I loved when we chatted on our very first kind of quick conversation that we had when we first chatted, Faye, was you shared with me, so it was me that we originally chatted to, but that when your husband was diagnosed with dementia and you were the one who was walking through the steps of being a caregiver, that was really hard for you to find perspectives, advice, information on being the spousal caretaker of someone with dementia. Most of it was in support of children whose parents were going through dementia. And that was kind of a big drive for you in writing this book, was to help other people who are the spouses of supporting someone working with dementia. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think, like, I'm a social worker by training. So, I kind of look at the structure of relationships like almost automatically. And if you think about it, the marital relationship is very lateral, and the caregiving relationship is vertical, right?
Mm-hmm.
One cares for the other. The parent-child relationship is vertical. It just gets turned upside down when the adult child becomes the caregiver. Whereas with the spouse, like there is an essential rupture of the basic structure that mediates that relationship in a good marriage. Like I'm sure there are marriages that are hierarchical. Ours was not. Ours was very lateral. Yeah. Anyways, and that whole thing seems missing. Well, and then the other thing is, I think because of the nature of that relationship, the laterality of it, and if the caregiver is a good caregiver, they are quite invisible and they just get kind of absorbed into the person with dementia. And so the kids don't even know, and the friends don't even know, right? What the hell is going on. So it's really lonely and it is invisible. And those two things I wanted to somehow get out there. Um, Although it's really interesting in the cover of the book, the conversation around that was so fascinating. The guy that I worked with to develop that, because in the book, I'm quite obsessed with being invisible. But in the cover of the book, the woman casts a clear shadow. The man is a shadow. And I thought, get over yourself, Faye, right? You thought you were invisible, but in fact, you were very visible in retrospect, right? Anyway, I don't know if all that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
But the invisibility thing, I think that, so to all of those spousal caregivers out there, I want them to hear, I see you, we see you. And I want family to look twice, right? To look to see the behind, I don't know, in front of the shadow. I don't know what the right word is there. Yeah, but we need to do that better because so many caregivers do not survive. Um, or if they do, they're a mere shadow of themselves when their caregiving job is over. And that's not right. That's not right. And then I think another piece on spousal caregiving is that line between being a caregiver or caring actually and being a martyr. Like the emotional valence is different. And you need to care in order to be a good caregiver. But a martyr is poison to the
Yeah.
person who is the martyr and to the person who is receiving the care of the martyr. And so identifying that line and helping people figure out that when they reach that line or just step their toe over, they go, whoops, nope, got to go back, or else it does neither of us any good. And again, I don't see that message out there anywhere. Um, and I think that lots and lots of spousal caregivers become martyrs, maybe because they don't know they don't recognize it for what it is, maybe because they aren't taught how to care. And so they blunder into being a martyr and wonder why that feels so bad, and why it's not effective.
Can,
Um,
This is so fascinating.
yeah,
This
that's
is
actually
so
one of the
fascinating.
quotes that I saved from your book is basically that one, is where you say, my life work was in helping, and hold on, my screen turned off, was in a helping profession, and I was trained to erect boundaries to protect my mental health and psychic energy. The golden rule is that no one benefits from martyrdom. So the second you recognize that you are resenting the help you give, you pull back to the point where you can feel good about giving. Simple, but it works. The training is in learning to listen to the first whispers of resentment. And I loved that. And that's exactly what you're saying right now, is that if you're falling into that martyrdom, obviously it's going to create,
Go ahead.
I know you have a question there, Melissa, but can you define for us what it looks like for someone when they've become a martyr versus when they are genuinely helping and giving without creating that martyrdom situation?
I think when you're caring, there's a watch and wonder perspective, right? You're just a little bit removed and you're seeing what's going on and you're figuring out what your job is in terms of what's going on at that moment with that person. And it's very movable, right? When you feel yourself going, like, all right, okay, right? When you just feel yourself going, again,
Annoyance. Yeah.
yeah, like that feeling, whenever that happens, is like, it means that you can't somebody is taking something from you, which means that you cannot give it freely. And you need to give freely for the gift to be to land like it's intended, I think. So it's a feeling. It's a feeling. And your face probably does something. Mine would go, right? I would purse my lips and grit my teeth, kind of, right? Or yeah, it would be okay. Like, it might be different for different people. And you just need to honor how you feel.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Would you say that's kind of like a conversation in your head might be, say you're cleaning the bedroom for the billionth time and you're angry and frustrated in your head because they aren't doing this and they aren't doing that and you do it all, and you're going through that spirally conversation in your head, and that's going down the road of martyrdom, like looking for this thank you and not receiving it, or looking for this reciprocal because of what you're doing. And the catch is going, hold on.
Yeah.
They didn't, like, the catch is going, let's check my conversation here. They do lots of things, or they're unable to do these things. I can't hold that expectation, right? Depending on it. Would you say that's kind of the conversation that tends to happen?
I think it's like figuring out, it's not that they aren't and won't and are being, withholding bastards. It's that they can't. And once you know that they can't, then you forgive them. Just like with your kids. Think about your kids, right?
Yeah.
You want your kids to tie their shoes in a hurry to get out the door because the bus is waiting already. But as soon as you figure out that it's not that they are being slow just to make you mad, it's that they are having trouble tying their shoes, that you then figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So it's not a foreign skill. I think we know how to do it, but we haven't said that we need to apply that skills to caregiving for spouses. Maybe also for parents, but for sure I know with spouses. Because it's so easy to say, God damn it, you owe me, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to not think that your parents owe you. Maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah.
I have three.
Go ahead.
Three questions. And they're all big ones that might kind of steer a conversation a little bit. So I'm saying I have three to keep myself accountable here. I've written them down. I think where I want to start, though, is by saying that must be really difficult. And this goes to what you were talking about with vertical versus parallel, lateral relationships. It must be hard, and maybe you can speak to, you are married to somebody, you are equals with them, you have equal expectations of each other and reactions about those expectations, and you have built your relationship for years and years on those expectations. And dementia isn't something that just comes and goes. It is such a slow moving thing that it must be really hard to, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, Faye, to those beginning stages where you're going, oh, how did you just forget that? Oh, wait, but it must be hard to flip that relationship and go, oh, I'm holding you to an expectation that was from before. Now you have to adjust all of your expectations and your reactions about maybe a lost expectation because you're holding the person with dementia to the expectation of what they were capable of before the diagnosis, before the start of dementia. Must be so difficult.
Well, I call it the 8 years of hell, right? Till I finally figured out that, yeah, that's what was messing with what had been a really good relationship. And all of a sudden it was quite toxic. And I was so angry and hurt and scared and all. And so was he, but we were not hearing each other. Let's just put it that way. So those 8 years until I figured out that's what the situation was. And then I could see it in a different light. That was one kind of hardness. But then there was 15 years later, 15 more years of living with dementia. And for a good 10 or 12 of those, we were quite productive. But the thing about dementia that drives you really crazy is it's flickering, right? So something that they can't do on Monday, they can do on Tuesday. And so you have to really keep the weight on both feet and just figure all the time your job still is caregiver, but every once in a while you get to act like you're almost a wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But only like you're just acting that way. You aren't really, because it could go away as quickly as it came. So that flickering, which is not, I think, very well, I haven't seen it very well reflected in the literature or in movies, because they have the person go away, right? The person just glasses out, and I think that does possibly happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is what they can do, right? So every once in a while they talk to you like they used to talk to you, and you go, oh, it's back, but it's not. You can't count on it, right? But you want it to be back. You really want it to be back. And it's so easy to think, oh, it is back. And then to kind of lapse into the way it used to be. And then all of a sudden you run into the sharp end of the stick about, oops, it ain't that way no more. Right? And you get into trouble.
Sorry.
So that flickering, she's crying.
She might
Oh,
have to explain her circumstance here.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
do.
I didn't think I would fall into this so easily in this conversation. I'm sorry, Sammy.
It's okay.
So, Faye, I need to explain my circumstance so that you understand where my emotion is coming from, and also you may understand where my questions are coming from as well. Sammy, thought it was tougher than this morning.
It's all good.
My mom has been diagnosed with early onset dementia, and so I'm watching my parents go through this right now. And I watched my mom go through it with her great-grandmother. I watched my mom go through it with her mother, and now I'm watching my mom go through it. And so we're in the early stages, and that flickering, that just that got me right in the heart, because it is absolutely, excuse me, oh goodness sakes, it is absolutely, you're right, it is hardly talked about. Or, like in literature and in movies, you're right. It looks like a slow fade. And I think I would have her permission to say this. And if not, then I can just ask you to kind of cut this out, Sammy. But I'll ask my mom and my dad for permission to talk about this. But I think that my mom would be on board. She has stated that flickering is really difficult. Like this stage that we're in right now, she says it's so hard because she also feels the flicker. She also is feeling it and seeing it and seeing the frustration of people around her, and she's frustrated with herself. It's not just those of us around her that feel it. It's like she feels the flicker. And she said to me once, she said, I almost just I don't like this stage. Like I wish that I didn't know what was happening, and I know what's happening right now. So this part is really tricky, and it's really tricky. Like I'm so grateful for the message that you are spreading, because I think that the support and it's amazing to witness, because
my mom was a support person for my dad. He had stage 4 throat cancer 15 years ago, and he kicked it. He's good now. He's got, the repercussions of chemotherapy, but he is alive and well. And she walked him through that in a remarkable fashion. And so I watched her in that role, and now I'm watching the roles flip. And it is really it's something to witness for sure. Which I guess leads, sorry, I just kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, and I'm sure that it's okay to talk about with my parents. I will make sure, Sammy, but I might be emotional through this conversation, and that's where the root is. Can you?
Because the other thing I want to say to that, the other thing is that curtain of privacy around it, right? That you don't, go for coffee with your girlfriend and say, oh my God, I was with my parents yesterday and blah, blah, blah. You keep it really quiet because A, it's painful. B, people don't know what to do with it. And C, there's a kind of, you want your mom to be ready for that to be out. And so she needs to tell you when it's okay for people to know.
Yeah.
And how to have that conversation. That was a question that got asked at this gig I did last week. One of the questions from the audience was, how did you talk about dementia? And I didn't answer it very well. I answered it anecdotally. So in the next blog, I kind of went into that more deeply and said, what you need to remember is it's not what you need to say, it's what they need to hear. That's how you talk about dementia, right? So when your mom says that that flickering is hurtful, she needs to hear that that's okay, and that it hurts me too, right? Or whatever. You just need to be with her on that, because I think that the other piece about that the getting used to dementia part is you're terrified about where it's going to go, because we all know it ends up horribly, right? We know that with a certainty. And so we're terrified. The caregiver's terrified. The person with dementia is terrified. The children, everybody's terrified. And the person with dementia is the one that's causing all that. So the guilt factor on that is awful. But if everybody can get a little bit more comfortable and embrace this as a journey, that has its upsides, because it does. I mean, there is a kind of, just how they say, out of the mouths of children come truth, out of the mouth of people with dementia comes truth. And sometimes it's so funny and so lovely, right? I don't know, Happy, if you've gotten to the part in the book where I have a penis in my face. Have you gotten to that one?
Yes, I have a penis in my face. Yes.
I did not. I have not gotten to that spot yet.
Well, I mean, that was absolutely correct, right? But could I have said it? No. Could anybody but he have said it? No. Would he have said it had his censor board been more to the fore? No. But he not only said it, he then celebrated it wisely, like he put it on Facebook. And against my advice, by the way, but he was he was going to do it. And people responded very, very positively to it. Anyway, all to say that there is an upside to dementia. And if we can open ourselves to that possibility and help the person with dementia to say, this is just another stage of living. Like, your husband went through cancer and there were all sorts of aspects of that, but you learned something from that. You loved yourself, you loved him in a different way as a consequence of that. This is different, but not so different. It's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Because I think the other, I'm going way, I am not.
No, it's great.
The other problem with dementia generally is that we've made it such a boogeyman, right?
Yes.
And so everybody's terrified when they can't remember where they put their car keys, that they've got dementia and they've seen this horrible end. Well, A, not knowing where your car keys is not dementia. And B, I don't think that it needs to be a horrible end, because I think that Michael kind of, I'm going to say, enjoyed his dementia. That's not quite correct. But he found a way to live well with it. Graciously is the word I want. And because he was gracious about his limitations, I could be gracious in accommodating them. So his graciousness was a huge gift, huge gift. And
That's
I
so
think he
cool.
could do it because A, he was confident that I would stick around and do what was necessary. He thought he was in good hands.
Mm.
And I think that gave him the confidence. And then B, when he was a kid, he had 2 summers of being in bed with rheumatic fever. And and the job there was to just be graciously ill so that he didn't harm himself. And I think he reverted back to that sense of who he was, because that was kind of good. I mean, got more attention. He was one of 7 kids, so there wasn't much attention to go around. But in that one, he got more than his share of attention, right?
Mm.
So I think that allowed him to be gracious about his journey into dementia. So
Ooh,
again, I would
that's
say look for earlier experiences that could be applied to the current, because it's not entirely new,
mhm.
but we forget, like we're made to think it's a boogeyman, so we don't think we have anything to bring to it, but we have a lot. We have a lot if we just figure out how to open ourselves to that,
Oh,
I
that's
think.
amazing.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
that's a common thing with
That's
anybody
amazing.
going through anything. I feel like unless it's like a very obvious medical diagnosis, like, I mean, cancer or a broken bone or something where it's, I don't, more in your face, for lack of a better term. I think whenever it's those kinds of things, people don't mind asking more questions about it. But even in those situations, people are still so afraid of upsetting you or asking the wrong question or whatever, that they just pretend that these things aren't happening. So when they come and speak to you, they don't acknowledge, they're afraid of acknowledging that things might be hard for you, that things aren't good for you as the caregiver and as the person with dementia. And so it's just like this pretending that everything is fine. And it's that
Yeah.
we really need to open up that dialogue. And
Yeah.
it's okay to ask me these questions. If I don't want to answer them, I will not.
Yeah. It starts with us being a really death-defying society, I think. Like we're so afraid of death, and
Mhm.
therefore then we get afraid of how we're going to die. And so we just spend the last part of our life trying to deny death. And yet, we are all dying every day, right? You know what I mean? We're getting closer to the end.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think that's why I really loved Amanda and her death doula and her death cafe thing, is I think that if we can embrace death as a natural part of life, we can then open ourselves to appreciating what our late journey is. And with dementia, which different than if you've got a more physical
Mm.
disease, um, I
I
think here's my theory, is that on the downside of life, you kind of become more like you were on the upside of life. So Michael was a dreamy kid, right? And he became a dreamy guy with dementia,
Wow.
which was easy to handle. He communed with things that interested him. So he till the week before he died, his job once was for over the course of the week was to find a piece of music, to find a photograph, and to do 50 perfect words describing what that music meant to him. And that was his job. And he did it like
That's
every
so
Monday
cool.
until I think he did it the Monday of the week that he died.
That's
And people in
so
the community go,
cool.
geez, I don't even know what music to listen to anymore since Michael's not posting anymore, right?
Oh, that is
Yeah.
so cool.
So, yeah. So that's, yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
When you were just saying what you're saying, this thought just came to my mind, and you were talking about we create this fear around death, and it's one of those things like even as a parent, right? You're like, oh, somebody died, and it's like, well, how do I tell my kid this person died?
Right.
And I'm like, well, if you've normalized death from the start, it's not a shocker to tell them that someone
Yeah.
died, because they are very aware that death is a thing. And I think
Yeah.
what we do is we make death and disease a feeling and not a fact.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Sammy.
I know, right? I
Say
thought
it
it was
again
good.
for the people in the back. Good one.
We
That's a
also
good
make
one.
death an event, not a process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys,
Because
Absolutely.
that's my whole thing about grieving, right? Is, the event of death, and everybody, cue the casseroles and the Kleenex. But in fact, right? You've been grieving that death for 25 years. or
Yeah.
20 or 15 or however many, but for a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're all grieved out. Like I felt so guilty when Michael died because I thought it was such a good death. It was exactly, it was the best possible, right? I felt so good about it. And then I thought, oh my God, I don't feel devastated. It means I didn't love him. And quite
Oh.
frankly, I didn't love him at that point. I loved at him, but I didn't love
Mm.
him, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It- I
Uh,
Yeah.
I loved when you talked about that in the book so much because I won't say who, but someone I know, their spouse died at a young age and he was terminally ill for quite a while. I know they became the caregiver. And I remember when he died so much and we wanted to ask like some version of are you feeling relief? I can't remember what the question is that you said you ask people when that happens, but I wanted to ask that because it's like I'm sure there is a piece of that because you are carrying this very heavy weight. And yes, there's sadness, but you've, like you said in the book, you've grieved the relationship that is gone. And now you're in a completely different place. And it's that relief of the duty that you have and the person's gone to a better place, right? And I love when you spoke about that in the book because I think it's, and I maybe I want you to share on that a bit more because I think it is a really important factor that a lot of people miss.
because my sense was my life returns to me and it's happened soon enough that there's still some juice left, right? Like, because I was older than he was by what, almost 3 years, although I was younger than he was. I'm young for my age, right? But I was worried during that prolonged time that by the time he died, I would be so old, worn out, past it. I don't even know what the right words are, that I wouldn't be able to sort of finish up whatever my life was supposed to be. So when he died, I thought, really,
He's
it's
still
early
alive.
enough that I can, the last part of my life belongs to me. I can do it the way it was meant to be, whatever the hell that is. But I can find that
Wow.
out, right? Because I'm my own person now, whereas I hadn't been for, well, really ever, because you always kind of belong to, your kids, then your spouse, etc. So I felt a huge sense of freedom and a huge sense of guilt that I wasn't doing it right. And I say in the book, people say, "Oh, you should read Didion, Joan Didion, right?" Which I had read when it came out. So I pulled it off the bookshelf and started reading it again. And honest to God, I threw it across the room at least 4 or 5 times. She pissed me off so big. Oh man. And I'm thinking, what is this all about? And what it's all about is that she's such a good writer and she was such an important person and she was so positioned, etc., that she wrote the book on grieving and how to do it right. And I was not doing it right. So I was having this prolonged argument with her. Yeah, about that she didn't in fact have it right. Like she should have damn well known that John Donne was going to fall dead of a heart attack. She had every reason to know that. So for her to act like this was unexpected was like stupid on her part. So these are the conversations I'm having with Joan Didion as I throw her across the room. So funny. Also, I saw her on TV. Her nephew, I think, was doing something with her. And oh God, she looked so like Michael. I was just like she was skin and bones and she was still sounding pretty good, but there was that, I don't know, vacancy, I'm going to say, about her. That and that combination was so Michael. Anyway,
Mm.
that done me in. Oh, that really done me in seeing that thing. But anyway, and then I felt guilty that I'd thrown her across the room, but I thought she
Oh.
did really deserve it because she didn't have the whole answer. She only had part of the answer. And he
Mm.
didn't die of dementia, he died of a heart attack. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Oh, where was I going on that? Grieving, yes. And I do now say to people, like to mostly widows. I don't think I say it very often to widowers, but maybe I haven't run into many widowers. I say two things. I say, was it a good death? And I say, your life belongs to you now, and that's really scary, right? Because I'm trying to
Wow.
do two things, like, right?
Mm.
Yeah. And sometimes I say, you look relieved. Uh, or do you feel some relief? Sometimes depends if I know them well
Yeah.
enough.
I feel like it's got to be such a tricky place to be in because
Yeah.
obviously there's sadness for the person that is gone and the life that you lost together. But like you say in the book, you were grieving that for years.
Yeah.
And then there's the relief. And I can only imagine being at that funeral, or I know you didn't end up having one for Michael because it was COVID, but like when you're with all those people and everyone looks at you like you're supposed to be distraught and you're not.
You're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said to my gang,
So
so my in my volunteer life, right? Well, on the Friday before he died Sunday. On the Friday before, on the Thursday night, I phoned my colleague and said, "You need to take my committee tomorrow. I can't. Michael's not well." And then he died on the Sunday. And like on about the Wednesday, I emailed him and said, "Okay, you guys, do not invite me to anything. If I can't come, I won't come. But don't you dare tell me I can't come."
Yeah.
Right. And I carried on life as normal, sort of starting almost the day after. Well, it's in the book. You'll see it.
Yeah.
Uh,
yeah.
which people thought was inappropriate. I'm sure there was quite a bit of
Oh, everyone has their judgments. But I was reading that and I was like, I think I would do the same. I think I would just be like, well, I may as well just go back to the things I was doing before. Like, what else am I gonna do? But we all handle that so differently, right?
You know, I think it's important that I think it's important for support people of the support person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's all the ripples, right? To understand, like when you said your life is your own now, so is your grief. Your grief is also your own. No matter what kind of grief process or no matter what you are grieving, your grief is yours. And this idea that grief has to look a certain way is just a real like backward societal pressure.
Yeah.
Because, just like what you two were saying before about how, what were you saying? And it was just about how we've made death into this like event and this, cue the casseroles and this kind of stuff. We've made it into something that has to fit in a box. And just like every other part of life, it doesn't have to fit in a box.
Have you heard of Dashing Dad?
Yes. Love
You
Dashing
have.
Dad.
Have you ever watched Dashing Dad After Dark?
I have not.
No. Okay.
No.
It's really beautiful because people will post their secrets or something they're proud of.
Yeah.
And so it's this place where you can anonymously or not tell people this thing and people will respond and he will share the responses. And then everybody gets to see these things that they say back about whatever's going on in your life.
Okay, I love this. It feels like, did you ever read like 17 magazine? And they always had like the thing in the back where you could like send in your stories.
That's cute.
Me. Yeah.
I was too much of a tomboy for that. I was not looking at 17 magazine. But yeah, it's really cute. It's basically like that, but on social media. I think the really cool thing about it is why it matters is because we all carry emotions that are hard to voice. Maybe it's guilt, shame, love, or hope. And in Dashing Dad After Dark, it provides a safe place for others to express those feelings, find solidarity with others, and realize that you're not alone. The amount of people I've seen post something about maybe a divorce they're going through, or a breakup they're going through, or a medical thing they're going through. And all of these people respond with the things that they've experienced in that regard or advice they can give in that regard. And it's a really beautiful community.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a cool idea. Yay, Dashing Dad.
If you haven't found him yet, go onto your Instagram right now and search Dashing Dad. It's a really cool community that people are connecting on.
I am on my way there right now. I want to ask you, is this a good time for me to ask a question? Am I interrupting anybody?
No, you go. My question was jumping
You
spots
had
too.
three,
So
and you only did one.
I had 3. Yes, I did have 3. Okay, so we talked about, changing that relationship and what that kind of looks like and the pressure that must feel like. How can we support, like, I'm going to make it personal, but it doesn't need to be because it's just like, but how can we, so like for us, say the children of the two that are going through this, how can, or the support people of the support person, how can we support the support person? I'm pretty good in how do I support my mom. I feel like unprepared and prepared at the same time. But how do we support my dad? How could people support you when you were going through that?
The tough part is that a lot of what you need to do, only you can do. Yeah.
Mm,
And
makes
so
sense.
lots of things you can't give away. And that's like people would like to know, what can I do so that you don't have to do it? And some things, I mean, I don't know, cleaning the house, I guess, is something that somebody else could do. So you don't have to do it. Cleaning the bathroom,
Mhm.
that's probably true. Hmm. But what you can do is whatever that person needs in order to continue to be their own person, independent of being a caregiver. Like whatever gives them identity and agency, give that to
That's
them.
beautiful.
So one of the gifts of one of my friends was we had a once a month date where we would pick she's an artist, so we would pick an art gallery within easy driving distance. We would drive there, we would go to the art gallery, we would have lunch or vice versa. And she would let me talk in the car and in lunch, but we didn't have to talk about me and my caregiving or whatever. We talked about whatever came to mind because the gap there was intellectual conversation. Like wasn't getting it at home anymore. So I needed to get it from my friends. But also the art gallery thing was nice because that shakes loose conversations that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise come easily to, etc. So it's whatever gives agency and identity, I think. And that will vary from person to person,
Of course.
etc. And then I think you need to, as much as you can, figure out how to have a finger on the pulse of how desperate the caregiver is feeling.
Hmm.
I don't know how you do that from the outside. But maybe you can have the caregiver do you the favor of telling you when they're getting close to the edge,
Yeah.
if they know, because sometimes you don't know till your foot falls over.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
I was just thinking, what a
That's
tricky
wise.
balance to be. And I don't mean, don't
Mhm.
even get me wrong. This is nothing on the balance that somebody who's being the caregiver is going through, but being the caregiver of the caregiver is like, on one hand, you want to honor the space for them to talk about whatever emotions they're going through, whatever hard stuff they're going through. Same with the person going through dementia or whatever, maybe. On the other side, like you just said, it's also important to allow them to be the person they are and not just focus on the caregiving that they're doing. And so it's like
Mhm.
this balance of opening up. Do you want to talk about this, or are we just going to talk about and pretend that there's nothing going on? Not that there's nothing going on, but be the
Mhm.
person that you are outside of the caregiving that you're doing. So it's like there's
100%.
this, you got to do both, right? As a
100%.
support person.
And it's maybe kind of like what I was saying. It's not important what you say. Like what you say is not the important thing. What they need to hear is the important thing. So it's just kind of opening yourself to be other directed in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you might need to
Makes
hear
sense.
them talk about how they're feeling, but they might need to talk about what about them Jays or Steve
Yeah.
or whatever the hell else, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Of
Just
course.
opening up. Like you're not there to receive what you want to hear. You're there to
That's
figure
right.
out what they want to
Yeah,
talk about and
yeah.
what they where they need to be. Yeah.
And don't make them do your emotional work for you, right? That's probably
Yes.
particularly important for children because they're having their own journey, right? Well, so are
Mhm.
friends. But with kids, it's really, and when my daughter's baby died, I mean, she and I, who were very close before, we became quite estranged for that next year because we just could not be in the presence of each other's grief.
Oh.
Um, yeah, yeah. And there was estrangement, and then she was mad at me for quite a while. Uh, anyway, but we're good now. We're really good.
Wow.
But that idea that you said it, your grief, like grief is your own. And see, grieving is happening through that whole process,
Yeah.
right, of dementia, the 15 years, the God knows how many years. There's
Yeah.
always grieving there. So
Yeah. For
yeah,
everybody, right?
yeah, it's somehow that thing about just being open to it's not what you need to say, it's what they need to hear.
Yeah.
And trying to figure that out the best you can. And actually, kids are probably pretty good at that, right? They know their
Mhm.
parents quite well.
Yeah.
And it's a
That's
growth experience for the kids, right?
a which experience?
A
A growth?
growth
Oh
experience
yeah.
for adult children.
Mhm.
Because and most of the books written by adult children, what they say is they discovered another part of their parent that they had never known and that they would not have known had there not been this prolonged period of them
Mhm.
needing to be visited and spend time with them, right?
Mhm.
So there's
Yeah.
gifts to be given there
I
both
love
ways.
that you say that. I love that you this is a departure from my questions. It's a departure from everything, but I love that you are bringing up positivity with it, because it is very easy to feel doomsday about it, especially in a family, not especially. I think in everything, because dementia has its picture in society of what people think it
Yeah.
looks like and what people think it feels like. And you're right. I think we've really like, oh, I lost my keys. Holy smokes, what's going on with my brain? You just lost your keys. It happens to everybody. It's not a thing. But I think, like, again, I'm sorry if I keep making this personal. It's hard for me not to in this scenario, but so like it in my family, for example, like I said, we watched my great grandmother go through this. We watched my grandmother go through this. We know what this looks like from the outside in. This is something all women in my family have this little voice in the back of their mind that goes, it's coming for you, right? Like, it is very scary. And it's very easy to think about the negatives. It's very easy to think about the doomsday stuff. So I love that you are bringing up that there are gifts to it, and there are silver linings to it. Does anybody want to wish this on anybody? No, but it's going to happen. It's not something that's got a cure at this point. So, finding some positivity and finding some light in that, especially because it's such a long process, I think is really important to focus on. It's really important to find those positive lights in there somewhere, or you're just
Mm.
going to get eaten by the doomsdayness of it, right?
And the other big positivity is, and we know this about the brain, like the incredible plasticity of the brain, right? So one of the things that, in retrospect in particular, makes me feel so good was how well Michael compensated for his declining capacities, right? I mean, he was so diligent about that. Now, there was a downside because part of it was he just really called on all of his Jesuitical training and became like totally OCD at the
Mm.
end. Um, but it meant that he managed his life so well that I could have a significant part of my time was up to me, right?
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
would get up, do his bathroom thing, make his breakfast, clean the kitchen, go to his office and do whatever his business in the office was, make his lunch, clean the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which meant that I had a great deal of time to do my own thing. Now,
Yeah.
you've got the tick-tock in the back of your brain, just, paying attention to is anything not going as it ought to, and trying to intervene before anything goes badly off the rails.
Mhm.
Uh, but that was part of his graciousness, is that he accommodated and compensated for his limitations. He didn't make that be my job.
Mm.
Thank you very much, right?
Yeah.
And I think that most people would do that if we allowed them to. So I don't talk much in the book, but this trip to Netherlands last spring to visit these green care farms, right? I only talk about it in the
Mhm.
what is it called? Forward in the
Yeah.
book.
Mhm.
But it was hugely important for me because it articulated and validated what my caregiving philosophy was. And there were three parts. One was do with, not for. So really nurture independence, right? Uh, and, if your partner or your parent was trained by Jesuits, that's really good. Encourage OCD. It's very helpful. The second one was find joy and purpose every day. And I think that is such a good mantra. I'm going to have it tattooed across my forehead because he did find joy and purpose every day,
So good.
making the breakfast, cleaning the house. He did laundry, right, meticulously. And like I was like doing laundry. I'd always done laundry, but he decided that that was his job because he couldn't do some other things that had to be my job. Anyway, joy and purpose, whatever it is for you. And then the third one is live till you die, right? Which really is about not spending every day not dying, but spending every day living because death might be tomorrow. And so that's about kind of neutralizing that anti-death attitude, fear that is so redolent in our society. Um, and again, I think if people have, I don't know what makes people ready to walk through the door. I kind of know what made Michael ready. I kind of know, I think, what would make me ready, but trying to figure that out best you can so that you can help that. Give the person permission to die the way to prepare to die the way they
Yes.
need to prepare. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
I think that giving permission to die thing is
Yeah.
incredibly important. Just side note story, and
Yeah.
then I have a question for you, Faye. But I remember when my grandma was dying. I was late teens, early 20s. I can't quite remember how old I was, but um, I remember it was right before Christmas, and someone in the room was like, just hold on, like just make it till Christmas. And I remember looking at them like, what are you doing? And I walked up to my grandma, and my grandpa had already passed away and they had been together forever. And I was like, you don't need to hold on. I was like, Grampy is sitting there waiting for you on a bench, waiting to watch whatever sunset. I said, I was like, he's waiting for you. So you just go
You
hang out
go.
with him. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. And I
Yeah.
like looked at the person who said the thing and like stormed away. I was like, what are you doing? Like, let her go.
Yeah.
This isn't, and it's one of
Yeah.
those things like you need to release whatever you're feeling and allow the freedom
100%.
for them. I want to just circle
100%.
back to those flickers for a second here, Faye, because I
Yeah.
feel like that season of flickers, which is was a very long season for you, is I don't think we gave enough credit to speaking about not only what that was like for you as a caregiver, but for you as a spouse. Because I think I'm guessing, obviously, please correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably one of the hardest phases to be in. I know you talked about in the book of when you recognize that you had to completely shift your
Yeah.
mentality about this relationship. And my only thought, what brings it to me is if you've ever seen the movie The Notebook,
Yeah.
is when he's in that home with her and that moment he's reading her the book and she has no idea who he is and all of these things. And there's a moment where she remembers and they start dancing together. And then in the mid dance, she forgets and is panics and freaks out and he's in tears. And it makes, obviously, I don't have like a personal story to this, but it makes my heart tear up because I can only imagine what that was like for him to have this moment of hope and
Yeah.
then it's shattered away
Mhm.
back to his caregiving role, which he's in a home with her. So it's a bit different. But can you speak about what that time was like for you with um, going from this incredible relationship that you guys had, this incredible by like very supportive on both sides relationship to you and these moments of flickers that would come up. Can you speak about that if you would like to?
Yeah. 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 Huh. Well, hmm. For me, because I'm a fairly purpose-driven person, like my thought in the morning is, what is my job today? Like, what do I have to accomplish today? That's who I am. And so after those 8 horrible years when I decided that he was being a jerk because of dementia, i.e., not that he wouldn't, but that he couldn't be the man I needed him to be, and decided, okay, this is shit or get off the pot time, right? You either, if you're gonna, you can leave because he's not going to be a husband anymore, right? So you can leave and but do it soon so that he has an opportunity to make whatever other arrangements he needs to make for what he's going into. Or you can stay, and if you stay, then you need to do the job, and the job is caregiving. It is not being a wife, it is being a caregiver. And that kind of clarity for me was really important because I need to know what my job is. However, even when you know your job is, and then he's acting like his old self again, it is so tempting to pretend like, oh, it is back. He can be
Mhm.
my husband again, right? So at the same time, you're interacting kind of like you used to when you were husband and wife. You have to remember that you aren't the wife. You're just the caregiver acting like the wife at that point in time. That sounds so convoluted, but it is the difference between doing your job and I'm going to say being your job.
Mhm.
I don't know. But it's this kind of division between who you are and what your job is at that point in time and in that place. Um,
Wow.
and I think I had to anyway say, no, he's not my husband. Because, see, that would be such a disservice.
Mhm.
Anyway, but you want to. It's like an addiction. I mean, you really, really, really want that, I guess, that drink, that cigarette, that whatever. You really, really, really want it. But you know that it would be a mistake to give in.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's helpful.
It
I'm
is.
pretty sure that like the social work training was useful in that you are trained to use yourself in the service of others, which is what caregiving is.
Yeah.
Would you say those
But I
moments
also
were
think,
hard when those flickers came? Was it
oh
hard
yeah,
for you to remind yourself?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very hard, very hard. It's like, not taking the candy even though you really, really want it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Uh, but then you have to find, the other thing you have to do is you have to figure out, okay, well, what about that marriage? Uh, can I find elsewhere, right? So that that hunger, that need gets met.
Mm.
And for me, the most identifiable hole was intellectual. And so in my journal, there's all of this
Wow.
talking about who can I have intellectual conversations with, right? And then it was
Sweet.
getting used to, well, they're not going to be the same kind of intellectual conversations because by then we could finish each other's sentences and we had all this shared experience, etc. With other people, it was more, I'm going to say academic for short of a word, but you had to learn how to talk that kind of talk with other people,
Mhm.
which I didn't have to do before because it was, available to me readily at home. So, I mean, not that you couldn't, but that you didn't have to in order to have your brain do whatever your brain needed to do. Mm, I don't know.
So smart.
If you could sit down with someone right now who was in the midst of that, who was in the midst of being a caregiver and they were experiencing these flickers, what would you say to them?
Mm, mm. I would encourage them to do whatever they need to do to take care of grieving on an on a present time basis, to not wait to grieve for the right time to grieve, right? Because the other thing that flickering does, and I think in the book I talk about that the medical system talks about anticipatory grieving, which makes my hair light on fire because it is very much in the present, right?
Mhm.
But there are all sorts of reasons why you can't kind of do it properly in the present. There's not time, there's not space, there's not permission. So to the extent that you can give yourself time, place, permission, do whenever you can. When you got a new baby, they say sleep when the baby's sleeping or sleep whenever you can because you're going to be sleep deprived for the next 6 months. It's kind of that you're going to be grief deprived for the next years. So figure out how to grab those pieces of time when they're available to you and make them available to you the best you can. So, my monthly visits with my friend to the art galleries, that was one of them. Putting in the apartment downstairs, like that was really very prescient of me because I knew that if I was homebound, I would not be a happy person and I would absolutely be a horrible caregiver. So did that and then trained Michael to, Mandy lives down there. She lives there so that, you know, there's always somebody on call. There wasn't really because she worked and Katie went to school, so there wasn't always somebody down there. But the sense that there was somebody under the roof that could help him and that he needed to use that help so that he wasn't that dependent on me. And then the deal went that as long as I had my phone with me and he knew where I was free to go. So he managed the calendar like beady eyes, right? Would come patting down and say, "You've got this today, and you should be getting ready because you have this in half an hour," which was good. Actually, I've been late for most things since he died, right? 'Cause um, um, yeah, so making that arrangement and then getting him to appreciate that that arrangement was to our mutual benefit and him being able to accommodate that because he was invested in me being nice to him, right? He didn't want to
Mhm.
and hanging in there for him. He didn't want to alienate me. So I could make, and I think caregivers do need to make requests
Mhm.
so that they can do their job, right? But they should look at it in terms of what are the work conditions under which they can do a good job. For me, it was being able to have my own projects out in the community.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's similar, like what you spoke about with kids, right? Is if you, especially young kids, if you do everything for them and never teach them the things that they also need to be doing, that they're capable of, you will burn out and you will be angry and frustrated.
Yes.
And so recognizing their capabilities and your needs and finding that middle ground and your expectations to match that is kind of what I'm hearing.
By the way, they won't be the people that you want them to be either if you overprotect them. And I think your generation got the short end of the stick on that one, because my generation believed in free range childcare. At least I did. Right. But, now it's honest to God, if somebody raised their kids now like I raised my kids, the child welfare would be banging on their door regularly. Right. So
Wild.
things have
Yeah.
changed, and not to the benefit of women who choose to be. That's why lots of women are choosing not to be mothers, is it's an undoable job anyway, and unappreciated and all that. Sorry, that's another rant.
You don't need to
But yeah,
apologize.
but
No.
encourage, nurture independence, joy and purpose every day, live till you die. Yeah, because that's the thing at Green Care Homes. See, I always felt guilty. Well, like I do guilt as an art form anyway, right? But sorry, but because Michael managed so well, I thought, well, he didn't really have dementia because it wasn't that bad, right? And so who the hell do I think I am to write a book about it? Like, because I had a walk in the park. All of that is true. All of that is true. But when I visited those Green Care farms, those guys were fifth stage of dementia, i.e. 724 surveillance, right? Um, and they were out there pottering around every day, doing something, planting the zucchini, watching the chickens, petting the
So
horse, God
good.
knows what. And then a week before they died, and this was the rule, not the exception, they basically just didn't have the jam to get up, right? Like I can't get up today. And there was an acceptance that said, okay, that's where we are in the cycle of things. So the last week was preparing for their death, did whatever. People came, people said goodbye, people did whatever business they wanted to do, and they died. And that's so a week, which was Michael, right? Michael, like I had to help him get ready for bed about a week before he died, that for the first time. And and then Thursdays when he took to his bed. The kids came and visited. They went out the door. He went to his bed. And on Thursday, and he died Sunday. So he lived till he died, right? That validated it because I thought, okay, it's not just him. It's not just him. That's the norm here in these small care homes. So it's about giving permission to die. It's about joy and purpose every day. And if the joy and purpose becomes, I gotta get ready to die now, it's time for me to get ready to die, I got some work here to do, giving that permission.
I'm glad you found the voice to speak about it and didn't dismiss your experiences, because I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Absolutely.
I hope so. I hope so.
Absolutely. And I think, like, when you said walk in the park, I was like, yeah, but you, the things that you did and the mechanisms you put in place, had you have not done that,
Might have had a hell of a time.
Right? So I think that just speaks to exactly your message, and exactly, it speaks to how powerful it is to create these mechanisms, whether they seem big or small at the time. Any little bit could be really helpful. And I think the things that you have said are remarkably helpful. I had the 3 questions, and I think you pretty much we've just answered them in conversation. The third one was just about what to do in the moment that you find yourself getting into that kind of
Martyr.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm losing my words today.
When you feel God, you're too young.
Right. I know, right? But just life.
Honestly, though, it's like when you're 20 and you have a weird mark on your skin, you're like, I don't know what that is. When you get into your 30s, like, oh my God, it's skin cancer. Like, it's
right?
it's immediately
Do that to
everything's worse as you get older. Sorry, keep going, Melissa.
No, totally. But yeah, like what I was gonna ask is, what do you do as a care person when you feel yourself falling into that martyrdom? What does it feel like to fall into martyrdom? And I think you answered it by saying, when you start to feel resentful of the person you're caring for, that's when you've fallen into martyrdom. And what do you do about it? I think you answered it just in the conversation that we had, in all of the ways that you took care of yourself and all of the ways that you, and I think this one's really important too, because like you said, dementia can be silent in that we don't know when we can talk about it. And I'm really grateful, like, again, on a personal level, my mom is like super open, and she's like, ask me anything you want. Like, she's super open, which is great. But what to do in that moment is just to rely on your community around you and build your community around yourself as a care person, and let them in and let them be that for you and tell them how to be that for you. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's what we do when any other kinds of major life changes, right? Like you break your
Absolutely.
leg, then you have to figure out how to fix your house so you can live in your house with a broken leg, or whatever, right? So it's not that we don't know how to do it. It's that we don't give ourselves permission to do it, and or support or encouragement, or in some cases financial assistance, to do it, like time away. Well, no, building the apartment downstairs, like, I guess that was probably 20K or so when all was said and done, right? And we could do that, right? But there's lots of people who, A, wouldn't have the right kind of house, and or wouldn't have the money to do that, right? So money's a thing too.
I want to ask, is there anything that we haven't asked you about today that was really on your heart to speak about in regards to your journey as a caregiver with dementia? Caregiver of someone with dementia, sorry.
Yeah. Well, interesting. The conversation when I was having massage this morning, that massage therapist is German, and so we were talking a little bit about well, and she'd been at this speaking gig last week. How did we get to talking about the Green Care Farms thing, like the small, intimate, I can't remember how it started, but what I said was what we could do in Canada is we could, like, personally and at an intimate level, own the responsibility for creating living circumstances that meet our need. Because both of those two green care farms that I visited in the Netherlands, both had been started by individuals who were caring for somebody they loved that had dementia, and then decided that, well, other people needed care too, and they could do it. And so they just expanded to the point where um, it was as big as they could have it be, and still have it be what they wanted it to be. Still had that kind of intimacy, because they were intimate. Like they had maybe 20, 25 people in it, but there was this intimacy. Everybody knew everybody really well.
It's
There were just so
amazing.
many good things about this society there. But they didn't wait for the government to do it for them or for whatever. They just used what they had and built on it, which is kind of what I did for me personally, right? Um, and then had other people might build on it then. Like, I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I want to care for another person with dementia in my probably remaining decade or so. Although the reason I went to Netherlands was because I thought, and I still do think, that we could create a green care farm right here in this community, right? Had the place, I I had a whole plan, and because my volunteer life is all about housing, I had kind of that kind of stuff to bring to it too. So I went over. McMaster took me over to, or paid my way over to the Netherlands in order for me to experience that, thinking that maybe that could inform me about how to do it locally. I came away from that deciding that to do it here would take a decade of really significant push. It would need to be my major project for the next decade, because of everything. And then decided I don't want that. I don't want to do that. That's not that's not what I want to do with my next decade. And so I felt bad because they'd taken me over there, and they've been very helpful to me. And part of me says, and I should repay them by making a green care farm happen right here in Minden, Ontario, because I do think it could happen with the right push, and I even think that I could do it if I was 20 years younger.
Maybe
I could.
your value isn't that you personally do it, but that you help guide someone
I
else
know.
to
I'm
do
looking
it.
for somebody else.
I was just going to say that, Sammy. I'm so glad you said that, because I'm like, maybe I was just going to say that exact thing. You sharing your message and sharing your passion, and all of that is going to inspire somebody else to do it maybe.
I think they might. I think they might. Yep. Yep. I think so. Anyway, hopefully, because that was
Absolutely.
the conversation is like, what stops us from doing it? The only thing that stops us from doing it here is that we don't give ourselves permission, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. We could do, it would be our variation. It wouldn't be the same as over there because we're a different society. We
Absolutely.
could do it if we wanted to.
So
So then the
cool.
question is, so what's stopping you already? What do you need to get from where
Mhm.
you're here and where you want to be? Just, you know, step by step, the little dog got to Dover. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure I'll blog about that in the next little while. I'm loving these blogs because all
So
these
cool.
thoughts, something goes out there, something comes back, the
Mhm.
thoughts, etc., and then the new blog comes out, right?
Yeah.
It keeps honing and clarifying and sort of challenging me to be more clear about what can be said. I love it. I love it.
So
Absolutely.
great.
Thank you so much for today, Faye. We so enjoyed this conversation and we're very much looking forward to sharing this. There's so much value that I know that you're going to add to those who are, I think in both parts, I know that the biggest one you're focusing on is spouses who are caregivers, but I think for both spouses and children or just people who are who know somebody who's living with dementia, so much of what you said, those flickers, the way to be a good support person to a support person, like there's so much value in everything that you said that we know is going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Faye.
Thank you. That was lovely. That was
Absolutely.
lovely.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Right. Yeah.
I loved
Hey, hi.
her so much.
Oh,
my goodness.
gosh. I'm so grateful for her, and I hope I didn't make it, like I said, sometimes I waffle back and forth when it's like, when something is so hitting me so personally and I try to avoid it. And then I'm like, no, because somebody else listening could be also taking it in a personal, and you hear somebody else talking about it and it can help bring it home for you a little bit. So I was going to stop myself, and then I was like, my emotions started spilling over and I was like, I just got to do it. So
I think when
anyways,
one of us
I love her.
can have that more personal thing to it, when it's personal, you think of questions that somebody else might not think of because you're not that deep.
Yeah.
Like you're not that deep into it.
Right.
And so it's harder to get there. So I think that adds value 100%. I really love her message with the joy and purpose every day, and not just because that's a general great message, but because she's not talking about it just for her specifically as a caregiver. She also spoke about that as the person going through dementia, living with dementia. She spoke about 100%. That too, that Michael found joy and purpose every day, and talking about those farms where those people each had a purpose every day. And maybe that purpose was petting the horses, but they had a purpose every day until they couldn't get up to do their purpose. So it's such an important thing. I mean, it's important in life in general, but especially when you have this extra layer of difficulty in your life or whatever it may be, or hurdle to create that joy and purpose. Finding it in the little ways is, I think, such an important thing for sure.
Totally. I love her message. I love every part of it. I'm so grateful to Amanda for connecting us to her, and I'm looking forward to learning from her more. So thank you, Faye. We're so happy.
And I love what she talked about with like the flickers, because I think that's a really good way of describing it. I mean, I have no personal experience with it. Sorry.
You do more than you realize, I think.
Maybe.
Because that was the thing that spilled me over when she started talking about the flickers, because I was like, woof, yep. and I'm watching it unfolding in real time. And I'm also hearing how it feels on the other side of it. Like, my mom and I are in very close contact, as you know, multiple times a day we're talking to each other, and she's very open about talking about this. So like when she said the flickers, I was like, oof, I know what that looks like from the outside. I know what it looks like watching my dad experience it. He's less sit down and talk. But I also know, I'm witnessing it. And the thing about dementia that's so it's a blessing and a curse. Because when you are loving somebody who's diagnosed with dementia, the blessing is it's not happening. It's not like a light switch that goes off. It's not like tomorrow they're going to forget who you are or who they are. Mm-hmm. That's not how it happens. my mom and I have talked about, like, when she first got the diagnosis, we were crushed. And that was a year ago. And since then, it's like the reality of it is like we might have 20 years of her knowing who I am still. It's a long process, but in that process enters the flickers, and that is real tricky. Like,
and it probably
I'm just
starts
like,
as flickers away,
yes,
and then it
yes,
flips
exactly
into flickers back.
Yes, yeah, which we're not at. Like right now, we're just at flickers away. Like it's just like tiny little flickers. Like
sorry,
you know,
I was gonna say in her book she speaks about Michael, and like she said, like he had his routine up until a week before he died. Oh, I can't stop yawning. And but she said, human. But she ultimately says like he was mostly himself. Obviously, like she said, not quite her spouse, but in other aspects of who he was. She speaks about how he was a lot of who he was until shortly before he died. There was and this really stuck out to me as a point when she talks about those flickers is apparently like whenever he loved to get people together. He loved to have social gatherings, and so they would always have these New Year's parties. This part of the story just sticks out in my head. They would always have these New Year's parties, but it was always earlier in the day, like 1 to 5. And so the New Year, they're ringing in the 2020 New Year because he died in June of 2020. Ringing in that New Year, they had their party and they had all the people, and she's like, he was in his element. Obviously, I don't know exactly what this means, but he was in his element. He was having his conversations, like he was engaged, blah blah blah. And the party ended, and I can't remember exactly how much time goes by, like a couple hours after the party, and they are doing their things, and then she goes into the living room, and she's like, how was the party? And he goes, what party? And it was like, he was there, he was present, he partook in this whole thing, he looked like he was like full onto it, but just not that long later, she goes, what party? And then she mentions also in the book, like the flickers, like you're saying for your mom, are both sides. Is that you could see in his face that he recognized her response to him saying what party was shit, I've forgotten something. And so like she has a look on her face that she tries to hide when he says what party, but he sees the look and then is trying to backtrack his sentences to be like, no, I remember, but like he doesn't remember.
But he doesn't actually.
He doesn't actually, right? And she talks about that conversation, that back and forth of like as much as she can take his perspective and then her perspective on that piece. And I just think that's really, really impactful, and she does a really good job of explaining it in her book for sure. Her book is called, for those that don't know, her book is called Dementia Widow, but I'll put that in the intro too.
Cool.
Anyway, so thank you so much, Faye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. To help support the growth of this podcast, please feel free to leave us a review, follow us on socials, or recommend us to your friends. Your support honestly means the world to us. With love, Sammy and Melissa.